Hi everyone and welcome to today's Biology Daily Booster. This is number 16 in our Paper 2 series and it is Advanced Information listed topics for both Foundation Biology and Higher Biology. What we're going to have a look at to start off with then is how scabs form. So we're going to be looking at the role of platelets. If we think back to what we've already done in biology, we know that blood has four main components: red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma, and platelets. This is where the platelets come into play. So when we're looking at the platelets, what they're going to do first of all is they're going to be attracted to the area of an injury that's leading to you bleeding. So if you cut yourself, platelets are attracted to that area. What happens in that region is they're going to change this chemical called fibrinogen into fibrin. And as a result of that, we make a little network of fibers, almost like a mesh. As a result of that, the red blood cells get trapped and they form a clot. That's going to then dry out and harden to become the scab. What happens there is we've now sealed off that wound to the outside world, reducing the chance of things like pathogens getting in, dirt, etc., anything that could cause problems. It then means that the skin cells underneath are going to undergo mitosis, repair that obviously injury there. Once that's occurred, the scab will fall off on its own. What we're going to look at are some non-specific defense mechanisms first of all then. If it's non-specific, that means it just prevents the entry of all microorganisms. It's not looking to see what one it is and doing something particular for that. These are just generic defense mechanisms. So our first one, the skin. That is a physical barrier. It's made of these dead, dry cells that makes it hard for microbes to get in and get through it. We also have sweat glands and they produce oils to kill microorganisms. Next one, stomach acid. That's going to kill pathogens present in contaminated food and drink. You've got cilia, which are tiny little hairs, and mucus in your airways. They kind of work together. So the mucus traps the microorganisms, and then the cilia do this little waft motion, moves the mucus up to the top of the throat where you swallow it down, killed in the stomach acid. You have hairs in your nose. That's all to keep out dust and microorganisms from getting into the delicate tissue of your lungs. And your tears contain this stuff called lysozymes, which are there to destroy bacteria on the surface of the eye. We're now going to have a look at the white blood cells. So we have two types of white blood cells we need to know about: phagocytes and lymphocytes. Phagocytes, first of all, are the ones that are going to engulf and digest. That is phagocytosis. So what happens is, as our little phagocyte comes into contact with a pathogen, it surrounds it, engulfs, and then it releases enzymes into that little vesicle it's now contained within, and that digests it. Please don't use other phrases. Phagocytes engulf and digest is the phrase to use. Your second one, the lymphocytes, produce antibodies or antitoxins. On the surface of our particular pathogen, we've got these little protein spikes called antigens. Now, the antibody is a complementary shape to that antigen. They are specific to it. So remember, phagocytes engulf and digest, lymphocytes produce antibodies or antitoxins. As far as antibodies go then, they are protein molecules and they bind to those antigens on the surface of the microorganism. At the point that that's occurred, the pathogen can be ingested by the phagocyte. So because we're recognizing specific antigens on the surface, this is a specific form of defense. So unlike things like the skin, which are just generic, this is targeting a very specific protein spike, the antigen, on the surface of a pathogen. In terms of what our body does then, is once you've been infected with a pathogen, your body has made these antibodies to it. So some of those lymphocytes that recognize the antigen, made the complementary antibody, then what happens is some of them remain as a memory cell. Now, memory cells are much longer lived, and they will just remain in relatively low numbers in your body, so that if you are then infected a second time by that same pathogen with the same antigen on the surface, your body is able to respond much quicker. As a result of that, it usually eliminates the pathogen before you show symptoms, and that means you are immune because you've got some kind of method to fight off that infection before you show any symptoms at all. If there are bits you want to go through in more detail from today's Daily Booster, then use the B6 playlist on the channel. Obviously, you've got your revision guides as well, your classwork notes that you can use. Do look at some past exam questions because things like the platelets have definitely come up previously. And of course, don't forget to join us again tomorrow for our next Daily Booster for biology.